Hi, this is Mike again. Today I wanted to look at how homeschooling as an option is growing and what is behind this growth. Homeschooling is a legal instructional option in all 50 states, and national homeschooling rates grew rapidly from 1999 to 2012 but had since remained steady at around 3.3. However, the global COVID-19 pandemic and the progressive teaching occurring in public schools has sparked new interest in homeschooling, and the appeal of alternative school arrangements has suddenly exploded. So, how significantly have homeschooling rates increased during the pandemic? It's clear that in an unprecedented environment, families are seeking solutions that will reliably meet their health and safety needs, their childcare needs, and the learning and socio-emotional needs of their children. The U.S. Census Bureau's experimental Household Pulse Survey, the first data source to offer both a national and state-level look at the impact of COVID-19 and dissatisfaction with public school on homeschooling rates, shows a substantial increase from the 2020 spring, when the pandemic took hold, to the start of the 2020 school year. Using a large, nationally representative sample of U.S. households, the survey shows homeschooling is notably higher than the national benchmarks and offers a glimpse of changes in homeschooling patterns during the pandemic period. We compare survey results from the spring of the 2019 school year to results in the fall of the 2020 school year to measure the pandemic's impact on homeschooling. In the first week, that is the April 23 to May 5 period, of Phase 1 of the Household Pulse Survey, about 5.4% of U.S. households with school-aged children reported homeschooling. By fall, 11.1% of households with school-aged children reported homeschooling, or the September 30 to October 12 time period. A clarification was added to the school enrollment question to make sure households were reporting true homeschooling rather than virtual learning through a public or private school. However, with this inclusion, the real number of students homeschooling may be understated. Certainly there are many parents who are using virtual methods to homeschool their kids. This exclusion does impact the results to reduce the true number of parents who have chosen to homeschool. The change represents an increase of 5.6 percentage points and a doubling of U.S. households that were homeschooling at the start of the 2020 school year compared to the prior year. It's clear that in an unprecedented environment, families are seeking solutions that will reliably meet their health and safety needs, their childcare needs, and the learning and socio-emotional needs of their children. In addition, many parents are choosing homeschooling as an alternative due to the indoctrination occurring in public school today. Those parents choosing homeschooling only because of the pandemic may return to public school if the pandemic no longer is modifying the way teaching is done in public schools. Those that are choosing to pull their kids out of public school because of what is being taught, are most likely going to remain to homeschool their children until the indoctrination changes. From the much-discussed pandemic pods, small groups of students gathering outside a formal school setting for in-person instruction, to a reported influx of parent inquiries about standalone virtual schools, private schools, and homeschooling organizations, American parents are increasingly open to options beyond the neighborhood school. Homeschooling rates are increasing across all race groups and ethnicities. In households where respondents identified as Black or African Americans, the proportion of homeschooling increased by 5 times, from 3.3 in April 2020 to 16.1 in the fall. The size of the increases for the other race Hispanic origin groups was not statistically different from one another. Some U.S. states had much larger increases in homeschooling rates for the 2020 school year than others. Massachusetts, for example, jumped from 1.5 to 12.1, while many other states did not show a significant change. Minnesota, for example, showed a doubling from 4.6 to 9.7. Possible contributing factors include local homeschooling variation that predated the pandemic, local rates of coronavirus infections, and local decisions about how school is being conducted during the pandemic. Homeschooling rates vary among metropolitan areas, as well. Among the 15 largest metropolitan statistical areas, for example, the Boston-Cambridge-Newton area went from 0.9 in the spring of 2020 to 8.9 by the fall. In contrast, the rate in the Seattle-Tacoma-Bellevue, Washington, MSA was not significantly different, for example, 4.2 versus 5.2, for the same period. Additionally, the rates are likely affected by local rates of coronavirus infections, local public school decisions about modes of instruction, and how many parents are aware of the indoctrination going on in their public school. The Homeschool Legal Defense Association, or HLDA, reported that the percentage jumped even higher in May of 2021, to 19.5. In response to the high demand for help with homeschooling, HLDA created a website, www.yukonhomeschool.com, with articles such as 7 Simple Steps to Start Homeschooling, Setting Educational Goals for My Kid, and Is Homeschooling a Good Fit for My Child? The survey showed that rates increased across all racial groups and ethnicities. Among black households, for example, the numbers increased from 3.3 to 16.1. States that saw the largest percentage increases include Alaska, with 17.9, Florida, up 13.1, Vermont, with a 12.8 increase, and Oklahoma, up 12.4. The Federalist reports that a variety of issues have driven the increase, including overbearing COVID restrictions, politically motivated curriculum, and what some perceive as the overall decline in the quality of education their children are receiving in government-run schools. The article quoted Maria Murray, founder and director of the St. Nicholas Academic Community, a homeschooling organization in Northern Virginia. Commenting on the increase in members of her group, she said, "The concerns I hear from inquiring families are things like requiring masks all day, the redefining of morality, and mostly wanting to be a part of a homeschooling community that primarily focuses on what education used to mean, which is reading, writing, arithmetic, a homeschooling environment where families can work together to focus on the basics and where families." In addition to the increase in homeschooling families, public school enrollments saw a general drop as some parents simply held off from enrolling their children in school during the pandemic, especially those in lower grades. The New York Times found that more than 1 million children did not enroll in local schools. Along with Stanford University's Big Local News Project and Graduate School of Education, the Times analyzed data from 33 state education departments. They found that 10,000 schools lost at least 20% of their kindergartners, more than 340,000 students who were expected to enroll. Some parents may be homeschooling those children, while others may be waiting for schools to reopen without as many COVID restrictions. With this level of reduced students, we should see a reduction in tax levies for public schools. Yet, I just received the new levy for the school district that my kids would attend, and it has increased over the prior year while the district is teaching fewer students. Parents need to be aware that the public schools are continuing to increase their costs while at the same time the indoctrination continues, with more and more new topics being taught and less emphasis on reading, writing, and arithmetic. Researchers have found that students have lost ground due to school closures and remote educational learning. PACE, the Policy Analysis for California Education, found, at the first anniversary of school closures due to COVID-19, nearly half of the K-12 students in the U.S. were attending schools that were either fully remote or offering hybrid instruction, with more than 70% of California students attending schools remotely. The report, COVID-19 Impacts on Student Learning, Evidence from Interim Assessments in California, analyzed data for about 100,000 students through the winter of 2021 and reported that students experienced slower academic growth compared to previous school years. The study showed a learning lag of 2.6 months in English Language Arts and 2.5 months in math. Homeschool Legal Defense Association (OLSDA) stated that it's difficult to know how many parents will continue homeschooling this 2021 school year, but says, it seems reasonable that the number of homeschool households will eventually decrease after most of the nation's schools have reopened. However, the speed and degree at which things return to normal are uncertain because of the lingering effects of the pandemic and concerns that many parents have had about public school safety and curriculum issues. Early enrollment figures seem to indicate that the enrollment in homeschool enrollment continues to increase. School closures helped many parents find out about those curriculum issues, including teachers and academics who think they know what's best for children, rather than their parents' schools that try to hide instructional materials from parents and schools indoctrinating children with radical political, sexual and gender ideologies. Aside from ongoing COVID closures and distance learning, these problems will encourage more parents to seek other options than public schools for their children's education. Parents are beginning to be more aggressive about reviewing the curriculum used in the classroom. Some schools are fighting parents by telling them that they need to pay for the time that it takes to put together their request to review materials, while other school districts are fighting by providing the materials but heavily redacting them. We continue to encourage parents to request their school district copies of the curriculum and teachers' materials that are being used to teach their children. We strongly believe that the reason our students continue to decline in test scores is that the material being taught is more about indoctrinating the students than it is in teaching our kids how to think. The left wants to dumb down our students in order to make them easier to control. In order to change this trend, parents are going to need to stand firm in order to battle this progressive movement that is impacting our culture. To learn more about homeschooling as an alternative for your children, visit Nehemiah Reset's website at nehemiahreset.org. We are constantly producing videos on this topic as well as other issues that are prevalent in our culture. The issues going on in public school is one of our prime topics because of the satanic indoctrination going on in our public schools. Public schools are promoting socialism, equity not equality, racism, and other progressive ideas that cause division among races and ethnic groups. You can support Nehemiah Reset and assist us in publishing more videos like this one by providing a donation by going to nehemiahreset.org/donation. If you would like assistance in forming a Salt and Light team or cultural impact team in your community, send us an email at info@nehemiahreset.org. Thanks for watching our video today, and we look forward to you watching another of our videos about how Christians can impact our culture.